knock some stuff over. So welcome. Today is Workout Wednesday. I am here with my wee Workout Wednesday. Tuesday, I have my brain in Q&A Monday. Today we are doing a session for the kids out there, yours, mine, and I just had lots of questions. I think it's that time of year where we're all getting a little bit more active, and your kids may or may not work out. But there's lots of ways that, for the same reasons we look at vibration plates, we should consider for our children. I'm just realizing how dark it is and forgot to put my lights on. Say hello, Deandra.
Hi.
This is my recently turned 13-year-old daughter, Deandra. And we're going to talk not just about sports and how you can use the plates in the way that we as adults may think of. But there's lots of ways, if you're a parent, if you're a coach, that the kids can benefit from using this technology just like us. I need to do just a real quick, make sure I'm working out on the other end so you guys can find me. And we're going to go through a couple of tips today, but I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions should you have. Awesome. We are live on the other end. Perfect. Okay. So today, as you can see, Deandra's in a seated position, mommy tight. Let's get these. All right, perfect. So you'll notice what I've done with Deandra here is positioned her lower on the stool than I may traditionally start at. If you've never joined me for a session where I teach you how to use a plate, if you're dealing with poor mobility, you're going to listen to Debbie Ravel for 20 minutes before you get started. Seated is a good way to begin. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on how to use a plate. I do want to amplify that there's lots of resources out there, one of them being some of my getting started videos on an oscillating plate, which is the movement we're going to be using today. So for today's settings and some of the examples as I talk, we are going to be working an oscillating movement. Oscillating moves like we walk, and all of Life Pro's platforms offer that movement style. It is the most functional, it's the most natural feeling, and in my experience working with medical grade on both the vertical and the oscillating side of the research, I can guarantee you 9 out of 10 prefer this movement. Again, it mimics how we walk. A very important point that I want to stress on every session until everybody gets this: you are always in control. So Deandra, if your feet are on the machine wide, what is the difference between when your feet are in the middle?
A little shakier.
It moves you more or less.
Yeah.
On a vibration plate, we refer to that as amplitude. So the amplitude, if you're really wide, you're moving more. If you're really close, you're moving less. And because we're working with littler bodies, shorter bodies, how the plate and the stimulus that it delivers, those little micro movements to your body, it feels different to each of us based on our sensitivities and our size and conditioning. So Deandra is petite. She's under 5 feet, and she weighs under 100 pounds. So we want to ensure that she's standing more functionally for her body type. So Deandra, stand up on the plate. Just like us, you'd want to make sure that your knees are slightly bent. But for foot positioning, before we get started today, she's about hip width apart, which is just outside the walking position. What you don't want is to be standing wider than your hips are. You want to be here or less. That's going to reduce the amount of intensity once we get the movement going. You can sit back down, honey. A few different reasons before we get started. Contraindications, your kids are just like you. If you're dealing with a medical concern, something of that nature, please consult with your doctor. It's not a matter of whether a vibration plate is an appropriate activity for your child. It's a matter of whether activity is appropriate for your child. Vibration plates are just a tool, just like an exercise machine that you may find at the gym. They're built to do a certain purpose, and what a vibration plate creates is an environment that makes exercise moves or routines, if you're doing more than a few positions, more effective because the machine's moving and you're not having to move yourself manually to get the same amount of muscle activation while you work your way through these poses. So it's logical that we may want to introduce our children. Where we become fearful about using a plate with our children is typically if we're coming from a place of inactivity or fear ourselves. We don't know what to do on it. So therefore, if we don't understand it, it's easy to fear something and see what some of the poor terminology on the internet may present. So a vibration plate, just like going to the gym, I do have guidelines if you want to work out and you're looking at doing actual exercise or sport training, you should be working in conjunction with a qualified trainer. Every kid grows and develops differently, and the reason that you may want to do intensive training may vary. Deandra might just want to warm up and do a couple of stretches before she does baton, but it doesn't mean we're doing extensive training as some of your coaches or therapists may be doing already. The plate is just an environment. Posture. Another reason with a lot of my kids today, we live in a seated, hunched over position nowadays, and we want to make sure that our kids are active. It's gonna help them be more physically and mentally healthy. The posture, it's going to give them better sleep, better self-esteem, better concentration, through using the plate regularly, they're going to learn how to use it to relax, and we're going to set those good habits for later in life. So if you're not an active parent now and you've embraced your vibration plate and it's something that you find you're using and you're enjoying, it's natural that your kids might be curious. I want to get the angle here a little better. If you are using your plate for athletic training, performance training, you are a coach or athlete yourself, you probably have a better background coming into using the plate to begin with, thus to teach and guide your children with. If you are a therapist and you're looking at some of the studies out there and you want to use this plate for surgery or recovery or pre-post surgery or just working with special needs in general, I said I would discuss that today. Again, it's just an environment. It's about knowing your patient. Should they be bearing weight? What type of exercises should they be doing? Which ones shouldn't they be doing? And once you sort of understand the dynamics of the plate, which I'm going to walk through with Deandra here very quickly, Deandra's going to start in just a very simple standing position, which could serve easily as a warm-up before heading to school, before heading to sports, as a recovery after. It's just a feel-good position to get the lymph moving, circulation flowing. We do a lot of homeschooling. So, sometimes she just needs to get up and go have a shake is really the extent of what we refer to it as, right? Now, she probably won't do what she does when I'm not around, but I'm going to have her stand up. Again, we're going to be hip width apart. You can get the plate going at a mid-speed. Like us adults, I always talk about using a mid to higher speed range when you're starting out, or if you want to increase the benefits and put a little less time into it. What you will also find is the mid to higher speeds are much smoother. The really slow ones are kind of choppy and wobbly. So Deandra, I want you on about 30, 40, somewhere in that range. On the Rumblex we're working on with Deandra today, it's up to 60 hertz or 60 speeds or levels, depending on which model you are working with. Amplitude, the other factor, is controlled by how close or how far apart the feet are. If you prefer working with a preset program or something of that nature, a variable program, that's fine too. But if oscillating movement is part of the single movement, or you're using it as one of the combination movements, the intensity is where the feet or hands are positioned. So what else might we want to do in a standing position? Maybe some pelvic tilts or some hulas, or maybe we swing the arms. How can we get more body into this? By moving around. Just shout it out if you know the answer. So when we move, lymph moves, and a lot of times when we're stagnant, whether she's been sitting in a schoolroom all day or in her desk, we're not the active beings we were up until about the age 5 or 6. And there used to be an old stat I talk about with some families. I think we lose 50 to 60% of our total overall flexibility by the time we're 6 or 7 years old. Well, what's the correlation there? We become seated at school for hours a day. And although we get our recesses and our physical activity, some of these things are optional. in today's world. So a plate can be a great way to get some activity and let's, more broadly call it movement into your kid's body, into their day, and set those habits early on. So let's say we did want to do some strength training. Deandra has completed all of her activities for the school year, but we want to keep the legs strong. She's been spending a lot of time on the trampoline now that the weather's better. But let's just try a really quick squat. Why would we want to do a squat? Just go down about halfway and hold still. We want to make sure from the waist up, the posture is good and solid, nice solid core. The knees are not passing the toes. And I'll bet you're feeling it right here in the quads. If you stand up a little taller, you'll feel the vibration move up the body more into the hips and the back. The deeper we bend deeper, the more you'll feel it suppress. So depending on where we want to target, whether it's the quads, the glutes, the calves, you can stand up a little bit if it's getting challenging. Why? For strength training, this is a great way to do it with kids that are growing. We don't want to strain or over-exercise those joints. So this is a really good way to warm those muscles up pre or post-sport, or as a complement in perhaps training that you're doing already in a more structured routine, but maybe for the off days. This is also really, really good for growing pains. And growing pains tend to happen when you get growing pains. Where do you get them? When your body's sore. Typically, the quads, the hips, the legs. Not saying we don't feel it elsewhere, but it's not uncommon for some of my kids to feel cramps in the legs or those Charlie horse sensations. And, we grow rapidly, some more than others in short periods of time. So the plate is a really good way to just help your body expedite recovery and help manage and move those aches and pains along and reduce that lactic acid buildup. So I'm going to have Deandra step off the machine. And let's switch gears here a little bit. You can just hit the power button for now. So athletic training aside, those of you that are able, any restrictions with kids would be similar restrictions that your doctor or your care provider may outline if you're in their care for some reason. So if you've had an injury, if you're dealing with something medically, obviously we want your care team on board. Again, this is just the tool, but not everybody's as versed as myself in how to apply the tool. So common sense applies. Keep the moves simple. Work with exercises that you're already doing for athletic training. The stretching is a really important one, but there's kind of an overlap I'm about to get into. So massage and stretching, which is a big reason lots of people, especially my guys, like to use vibration plates. It's Men's Health Month, so I got to give a plug there. And it was Father's Day last weekend for those of you that got a plate. But just like I said earlier with kids, we want to sleep better. We want them to have better physical, mental health. It depends on the kid. So if you're dealing with a medical concern, mobility is not there, perhaps you're not able to bear weight, you're in a recovery situation where you're able to do certain activities or you're limited in your activities, all the way to the opposite end of the spectrum where you're mobile and you require assistance for everything that you do. I do deal with a lot of special needs. In this environment, it really depends on what the user is able to physically perform and tolerate. So opposite end of the spectrum, a lot of my kids that are inactive, as well as dealing with special needs, they don't go to the washroom as regularly as I would like them to. 1 to 2 times a day is kind of average. And a lot of my kids that are living in wheelchairs or spending a lot of their time seated, it just compacts the problem. So Deandra's got great range of motion. I want to take advantage of showing you a couple of tricks you could do both for that recovering athlete all the way over to the pediatric user that maybe just needs some activity, some core strength perhaps you're trying to work on. Maybe you're managing pain, swelling, you want to increase lymph, circulation, all those things we talked about before. But just like our bigger, taller bodies, it becomes an ability thing. And what I love about my pediatric users as a mom, if I needed to, I can pick Deandra up and personally position her on the plate to do those kinds of things. It's a little more challenging with your 88-year-old grandmother that just had a hip replacement. So for my therapists out there, I want you to start thinking outside the box. What can you use in this environment to accelerate your outcomes? What can you do prior to the other treatments you're already doing to increase effectiveness? And outside of what we're going to do with constipation here now, Deandra standing on the plate for that 30 seconds to a minute and performing a squat improved her balance dramatically. The number one reason my therapists or my care providers like using a vibration plate with my kids that are able to bear weight or partially is it makes them more stable. It gives you energy. It improves the posture. There's a lot of very, low level benefits that we don't necessarily pay attention to until we get to the squats and things like that. So don't discount a minute or two of just some feel good, spiritual energy lifting before you head out the door or before you're applying it as other treatments. So we're going to sit on the machine now. So I'm going to move the stool out of the way. Yeah, go ahead and get it going again. For those of you that might be dealing with poor mobility, you're very thin or frail, or maybe you're just very sensitive or you bruise easily, you may want to mat up the machine. Deandra's been using machines since she was conceived, quite frankly, but with lots of guidance and experience. I'm going to have her stretch her legs out straight in front of you. Deandra has what I refer to as good tolerance, which means she's been using these things a long time, and I don't think it's rare that you use a mat. So a mat may be used if, maybe you're getting on your knees or your elbows or your hips or certain areas of the body that might need padding. For this position, just by sitting on the plate, we're getting some nice movement into the hips and the low back. Depending on how Deandra sits, we're going to now show the good people what good posture looks like. We're going to sit up. But what happened when you did that? Where do you feel it? It moved from where to where? Like when you're leaning over here, there's nothing in the head. So it's very natural that she's done this without, it was that simple. But if you're feeling it too much in the head or the vibe is just not comfortable for you, lean forward slightly as Deandra is doing here. If you want a little bit more movement in the shoulders and the neck, put your elbows on your knees. Keep leaning over and relax them out or bring them up here. Just rest the elbows on the thighs or the knees, depending on how far you can reach. And you're going to get a subtle bit of lymph circulation going on the upper body. But the primary reason we're sitting on this for a lot of my pediatric users that do lack mobility, this is a great way to get things moving without having to lean on pills or laxatives or other methods. So by sitting on the machine, usually within a day or two, make sure you're ramping up your hydration. This is also a great one to do if you're dealing with tightness in the hamstrings or spasticity, which a lot of my families are. It's kind of a 2-in-1. So we're getting the hips, the back, the lymph, the circulation. We're getting things moving, whether it's constipation or perhaps incontinence. If it's incontinence and you're able to add Kegels. She's giving me that, mommy, don't do that face on camera. But Kegels, clench for 2, 3, 4, 5, release. The plate again is just an environment. It's going to ramp up the benefits of the exercises we're already supposed to be doing now. And one variation that I'm going to have Deandra show you, if you are dealing with the spasticity that I just mentioned, this is a great way to target it directly. But if those are areas that you're stretching now and the balance and stability or the mobility is not there at all, Deandra, we're going to stretch the calves. So pull the toes, keep the legs straight, and reach for those toes. And just hold, relaxed. We're pushing the chest forward more than just seeing if we can reach. So we're going to get a good stretch all the way up the calves and the hams. Sit back up. You can do that for about 3 to 5 seconds. If your child is unable to control their movements and they need assistance, or they're just silly and they don't want to relax, you can also, if you're helping and you're manually stretching now, just seat them on the plate. You can also position them around the other way. Perhaps prop them up on the Aeroflex step. Put the calves on the plate. Use the plate on massage for wherever you want to target sort of directly. And sometimes you need to experiment to see what's comfortable for the body and the size that you're working with. I'm going to have you stand up. One last exercise and a variation that I do want to share with you. I'm just going to go like this. Okay. The chair, whether your kid's got mobility or not, is just a good thing to have as a safety measure. I want to talk to you, for those of you that are in the middle, we're bearing some weight. maybe we need some assistance in doing that, or maybe you're a training athlete where you're pushing yourself to that point of fatigue, or your trainer's working with you. I do recommend with my kids are way smarter than us. If we ever, as an adult, get into a situation where we're pooped out and we're getting tired, we tend to push through till we're done, whatever. We have this time, this clock thing in our head. But with my children, if it's getting to the point where they're like done, typically they'll just get off. Instinct tells them that versus, they haven't read the diet magazines that we have by the time we're 40 and 50. But I do suggest if you're pushing because you're coming from a place of building strength, or you're trying to work on duration and endurance, have some safety features available when you're working. So the stool is a really great tool if you just need to sit back down. This is a ladder. Let's pretend this is attached to the wall. But this gives you something to hang on to for stability. So maybe I want to push her range of motion because, the muscles are suffering from spasticity, or maybe it's because she just lacks flexibility and I'm her trainer trying to push her. So we're going to go a little bit deeper. Now you want to hang on for stability, but not for dear life. And at any time you have to let go, or if at any time you let go and you feel like you're going to wobble or fall off the machine, you're going beyond your range of motion, or you're out of a good weight distribution. So I want you squatting lower. Keep in mind on those knees. I want you going as deep as you can before you feel like you have to hang on. Just hold still when you get there. Watch those knees. Are they the right width? Widen those knees up. One thing that commonly happens with those long thighs, okay? My ball's in your room. Hold that. No, other way. Oh, let go. Perfect. So what I've just done, when it gets hard, we have a tendency to do this. I've placed the smallest swirl yoga ring. You can use a ball. If she was shorter, you could use your fist between the knees. Let go. To help with that alignment issue. We have a tendency to want to do this, and this works good for my adults too. Okay? You can take a break and sit down. So any positions that you may be working with your child athlete or with your child patient, I can't stress enough, this is just an environment. There are 3 factors that you need to understand about your plate. The type of movement. So oscillating is what we worked with today. I, bar none, feel it is the most functional. It works more, there's more of a broad audience, and especially with my pediatric users, kind of one of the top reasons people are looking at vibration plates or short term is that balance and mobility piece. So you're going to be destabilizing. Your body is forced to keep itself stable in this environment, regardless of the position that you may be doing. The second thing is the speed, the levels, the programs. Slower tends to be more choppy, more destabilizing, and it may be great for positions, certain positions like planks, or one-legged exercises where you've got balance and you're trying to progress or challenge and train in a different way. But for those of you that want to improve balance because you need to, or you lack balance and you're fearing being too active because of that, a vibration plate that's the first benefit you will receive in using it. Even seated, you're going to see an increase in stability for lots of different reasons, the circulation, the lymph, if you're dealing with sensitivity issues, neuropathy, those types of things. Kids deal with all the same things that we do as grown-ups. Are kids allowed to be active? It depends on the kid. Remember, the plate is simply an environment that makes it more possible, especially if they're dealing with deficiencies of any kind, just like us. So work with an experienced trainer if you're looking for any type of training specifically. If your kid's athletic now, they're working out and they haven't embraced the benefits of this technology at home. A lot of it is just understanding how to apply it, and it doesn't need to be a big 10 to 15 minute thing. It could be 2 to 3 minutes. So that's not, that's number 3. That's dosage. How long? So for my therapists, it could be a minute, maybe 30 seconds on one exercise, just to enhance or facilitate the exercise in a more beneficial way. If you're an athletic trainer or you're a therapist and you're trying to push for strength gains or mass improvements, you want to use weights, you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. This is the environment that you can bring the knowledge, the techniques that you may be using now, and just complement whatever the bigger picture is that you're trying to accomplish. So kids can use vibration plates, but that's a very big, very general question. Know your kid, know what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and just like many of us, what are those goals? And if you need someone to help you achieve them, whether they're athletic or therapeutic in nature, reach out to myself, Amber, anyone out there that's qualified as a trainer, Roseanne. There's so many different ways that you can become fit, active. Our kids are just littler versions going through the same motions. So thank you, Deandra, for letting me beat your legs up a little bit today. And I just want to move to camera now and see if there are any questions. You want to sneak outside, or do you want to? You gonna come join me? Where did Mommy put her glasses? There we are. Okay. So, I have done another session in the past, kids and vibration plates. So I will take a look at that, and I will drop that in the chat window, or actually I'll put that in the recording after the fact. So I rambled a little bit more last time. I think Deandra was using her baton. Yeah. So, if your kid sings, she also sings, but I wasn't going to put her on the spot. There's things that, you can do in unison just while standing on the plate, clearing your Facebook messages, get them moving, get them feeling better for all the same reasons that you want to. So, and if you are a kid and you're using a vibration plate and you're joining Deandra and myself today, let me know where you guys are from. If you have any questions, this is your opportunity. I would love to hear from you. If you are watching this on a recorded basis, always feel free to tag me at Debbie with a Y. Sometimes if the chat elaborates or evolves, I get lost in the translation, and I want to make sure that you're tagging the right Debbie. So make sure that you tag me and I don't get lost in notifications if you did have a specific question. I see there's a few of you here. I'm just going to make sure no one's barking at Facebook. Did you have fun today?
My legs are tired.
Her legs are tired. Yes, we were outside with them.
Somebody else joined you.
Yes, there's a few other people here today. Well,
Yay.
if there are no questions, I hope you enjoyed some of the tips that I gave you today. Again, the plate is just an environment, whatever model it is that you may be using at home. All of Life Pro's models offer oscillating movement. If you have pulsation, perhaps you have lateral. Again, these are just other features to add some variety. The moves, the routine, the goals in what you're trying to accomplish are one of those things you need to identify first. And the settings are just a great way to add some variety. I do have a question. Hello, Carrie. Is sitting better than standing? My kiddo can't stand, but it's hard for him to sit. Carrie, you got to work with the kid you're working with. So better meaning what is it you're trying to accomplish with a kid, especially if you're dealing with, let's say, no mobility, no sensitivity below the waist kind of situation, or even the athlete. The first week or two is really just getting them assimilated to it, getting them play with them on it, catch ball, let them watch their television programs or listen to music, while they're on the plate. So if you have a child that has no mobility, yes, I've done some specific work more in my private group to that. It's more about you, the parent, in that situation. And I really encourage my parents and my care providers, if you are caring for special needs at home, as the care provider, it's important for me to keep you strong as well. Kid gets to about, well, she's 13 now, but they get to about 7, 8, 9 years old, and physically it becomes a different challenge, your back, your hips. So use the machines to keep yourself as the care provider in a good situation too. But you can if you've got a chair that you use with your child, you can start by exposing the feet. So you can put the feet on the plate. You could do some manual manipulation with rollers. You can use lifts. So, go to Walmart, get a punching bag mount and a yoga swing and sit them in that if you are physically able to manage. Any of the exercises that you're working on at home, if you're working with any lifts or standing cages, all these support tools you may be working with your child, see if you can incorporate these things into use with your plate. If your child is able to partially bear weight, the ladder, the chair, or depending on you, can we go show them a move? I'll show you one example. I don't know how big your child is, Carrie, but I'll show you one example. Come this way. Deandra's almost getting a little tall, but I can stand on something behind her, like my aerobic step. Okay, put your arms across your chest and bend your knees just slightly. Okay, so you can assist. If you're assisting now with your child in any way, shape, or form, if you're using a harness, move forward slightly, like with your feet. Step forward all the way. Okay. Another way that if you're working with someone that you can physically manage, but you can't hold for long periods, sit down on mommy's knee. Okay. So this is getting some weight bearing going. I can do this all day long. So you have to first, as the parent, experiment and make sure that you personally are in a position to support them while they're on the plate. Stand back up. Maybe it's a combination. You got that? I want you to sit more on my knee. It's okay. Don't be shy. Sit back more. Okay, so maybe your child is hanging on and you're taking off some of the weight. This is partial weight bearing. And then maybe from here, Deandra, try standing up slightly. Maybe we're doing a sit to stand variation. Sit back down. It really depends on what type of exercises you're doing now and comfortable doing with your child. It's the dosage that would dramatically change. So step off. Where plate comes in with therapeutic positions or pediatric use, especially when you're, some of my parents used to spend an hour every night massaging those hamstrings just to get the legs straight. No. 2 to 3 minutes on your machine can bring you the same benefit. For me, for the severe end of the spectrum where my kids are dealing with very, very severe symptoms, it's about more family time and less therapy time. It's awesome what the plates can bring. There's another question. Hello, Nancy. I'm not moving lots ever. I need to lose 100 pounds. And Nancy's also saying I have bone on both my knees. So do I. Nancy, funny story. I got into this almost 20 years ago because I had a doctor tell me that I was fat and old and I needed to have a partial knee replacement. And then I met a vibration machine. So the rest is kind of history. I do have, today was more about the kids. I could talk about knees all day long, but just like the kids dealing with severe issues, one of the ideal things about a vibration plate is it's a low impact activity, but there's a couple of things I recommend you understand before embarking on this journey. So what I'll do, Nancy, if you give me about an hour, I'll circle back and I will do a drop with a spreadsheet to all of my sessions, but I'll also do one specifically to the last kids and the knees. I did one recently. Sometimes like you think you've done it all, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't done one just on knees. I gotta do a session. So I did one a couple weeks ago on just knees. And again, it's about you. Maybe it's better to start seated in a chair. Start thinking of the body as a house, and if you're not going to renovate the foundation and work your way up, it's just aesthetics. So get those feet feeling better. Get the rest of it that's going to support those knees, and in many cases is doing the compensation already now. Get used to how the machine feels, but I'll teach you some tips. It's always about bringing those feet close to reduce the impact when you've got that bone on bone. Anything with joint inflammation or pain or anything, we want to reduce the intensity. Carrie, I hope that makes sense. I just have him stand now. Ours has handles. Looking for other things to do. I have a group specific to, are you in my cerebral palsy group, Carrie? So did you have, no, I never did have the knee surgery, Nancy. I'm 52 now. I was about 33 then. I've lost about 60 pounds. Didn't hurt. And it's, you don't have to lose weight to get a knee surgery. It just makes the statistics look better. So that sometimes that's more about politics, but it didn't hurt. I do have to be careful with what I do. I can do these all day long, but if I wear heels or if I do stairs too much, I pay for it the next day, but I get on the machine and it takes care of it. So, maybe someday I need to, but I'm certainly in a much better position for some, it's not a forever thing. Right? You get a knee done. And if I choose to be active and continue, God willing, depends, it's up to him whether I need more down the road or not. But I've been so far so good. But I'm the best barometer out there. I can tell you whether it's going to rain or snow. Kathy says yes. So yeah, surf in my group. If you're in my private group, there's some other videos I'll deter you to. But I have anything that I've done here on Life Pro's page, and there's over 100 videos. I'll get that spreadsheet dropped here after the fact. But it's a matter of looking at the user, whether that's you as an adult, a child, a therapist, who that is, what you're trying to accomplish, and what you're able to do to accomplish that goal. So if the range of motion ain't there, what kind of hacks are you doing now? Are you sitting on a chair? Deandra's on a hydraulic lift chair. Kids tend to change in size and grow taller. But again, a family using a plate, a family that is active. If you are an active family, your kid tends to be active. So if you're using a vibration plate, guess what? Your kid's going to want to use a vibration plate. I'll speak very briefly to protocols and settings and speeds. And I don't want to see one post about, oh, Debbie, everybody said that 30 hertz is best for spasticity, or 40 hertz is best for bone density. I don't want to hear any of these things, because you're telling me 1/3 of the equation. Well, 1/10 in many ways, but you're telling me a frequency. But by telling me the frequency, I know that you're referring to what's referred to as a vertical machine. Nothing to do with the plates we're using here today. Those machines, for the most part, haven't existed in the better part of a decade in the form of the machines that the research offered. The vast majority of research and the primary movement style, which is kind of more important, you got to know how the machine moves before you can associate a set of benefits and frequencies to it, because they're not the same. Vertical plates have much higher frequencies, but much lower amplitudes, and sometimes fixed. So that's how much you move. As Deandra demonstrated today on an oscillating platform, pivotal, side alternating, they have to put all these names on it to confuse you further. But the teeter-totter movement style, the wider you stand, the more you shake, the closer, the less. So that's your amplitude. You're always in control. And it's more how we move. It's more functional. So experiment with the exercises you're already doing now. And when you understand those variables, the frequencies, and trying to mimic them, it becomes more understandable. But what happens in the pediatric world, sometimes it's a dosage thing. So you got a kid coming in, you got a vibration plate, and this study said this. Again, you still need to introduce them to it. You need to set a level of comfort or standard, in which to establish that baseline, comfortable to the user. So Deandra has been around these plates a long time. She can probably, suck it up and hit most frequencies, because she understands the technology. But what happens very commonly with some of my medical users is you try to mimic that protocol with a body that isn't experienced or comfortable with this technology, and you scare the heck out of them. You make them all itchy, and you don't explain things. So, unless you're going through this experience and understand physically how it feels to you personally, it's very hard to apply the tool. So invest some time, whether you're a parent or therapist, using the plate that you have yourself, and how you apply it for your child, and whether appropriate. It becomes a little bit more common sense, or at least a better discussion that you can have with your sports trainer, care provider, whoever else is in the circle there. So I hope that makes sense. Nancy, how do I get on the private group? It has to be related. Nancy, I don't offer private free support for everyone. I do offer one-on-ones, but it's sort of my give back, my donate time. If you search through my profile, you can find my groups, but you will have some questions that will be required to answer. I will come back to you. I think that's all the questions that we have here for today. But I'm going to post the knee one for sure for you, Nancy. I think that's going to shed a lot of light. If you don't have a bar height stool, a good comfortable one that you can incorporate with the plate to get you at that functional 90 degrees seated height with the feet a bit elevated on the plate, seek one out. One big thing with the knees, Nancy, is you don't want to be downhill. You don't want the hips lower than the knees. So seek that out, and then the videos you'll hop to it a little bit quicker. And Carrie, I will drop another video that I did specifically to cerebral palsy and special needs to offer you some insight on Life Pro's page here as well. Everybody else, thank you for joining me. There's all kinds of amazing discounts, still some good deals since Father's Day. I think there's 20% off right now. So there's no excuse. Go shopping while supplies last. Thank you, Deandra, for being my shaky girl today. And I will see you guys again next week. Next week, I am going to review some new user questions. There's so many new folks that have gotten machines between Mother's Day and now Father's Day. And it's just that time of year where our activities are changing and we're all in the right frame of mind. So I'm going to go over some more common user questions. I'm going to be on the plate, and I invite you to come join me and share that if you do have friends that have gotten plates that you may have referred to recently, because we've all got some very common questions, and I invite you to bring those to me next week. So thank you for joining me, guys. Have a great rest of your week, and enjoy the nice weather. Hopefully you're having some.